like the one my mom and I had, right? Brothers were murdered by the system you created. You should probably let them, right? Your mom was an activist. Panther? Oh, it's like, for sure. Let them participate in capitalism. We need them. Let them become a professor. I'm sure they didn't want me to be a CRT professor. Anyway, but my point is there's also a lot of trappings and pitfalls. So there's, terrorism related, what's called TRIG, pitfalls around some of the legal status adjustments that can be made. Now, again, I want to preface this by saying that I am not a lawyer. There are several lawyers that I personally know in the room, so I'm going to watch how I describe this. But I will say that, for example, if you had a sister or brother or cousin kidnapped by the Taliban and you were to pay a ransom to the Taliban, given the status of the Taliban as a terrorist organization by the DOJ, there are questions at the very least to be answered before someone could even be at the precipice of being granted asylum. This I know for a fact because I've been in enough conversations with refugee agencies, thanks to all the Zoom reminders that Kira has sent me, where I know that this is a challenge that many asylum lawyers are having. Now think about that. That level of desperation where you're at that point of, so I'm trying to bail out my mother, but I'm paying this terrorist organization. I go to this country that left me with them, and now I'm living in the trappings of, well, why did you do that? And how do you prove that level of threat or duress? Now, there are caveats around duress and coercion and forced ransom giving, but proving them, just like quantifying fear, is a very difficult undertaking. So I just wanted to add that. Sorry.
I think the only thing I would add is that yes, like asylum law and how people get here, it's very complicated, but it's, it all comes down to something really just fundamental and basic, which is that we have made obligations after World War II not to return people to places where their lives are at risk. That's a really basic principle, and it really shouldn't be this complicated for President Biden to figure it out. So that's takes me to my point, which is that we have a campaign. It's a national campaign with bringing together organizers, policy, border groups. It's called Welcome with Dignity, and it's and really like sophisticated comms professionals, because we all know that what it's going to take for the administration to do the right thing is political pressure. They're obviously making decisions based on whether they're going to win elections, and so as we saw with the Ukrainian example just a couple of weeks ago, when people are loud and there's a tension on this issue, they will make the right decision. So I think like we're in the Bay Area, like we're preaching to the choir here, but I think that like our voice and our Senator Alex Padilla, like snaps for him. He has been out front saying that this policy needs to end, and just been incredible. So I think like thanking him for doing that, and just continuing to beat the drum is like so important right now, because we're just at a really critical moment before the midterms. So before it's kind of like this just becomes too normalized for us to ever go back. So.
And just to ride that momentum, we've had several phone call letter writing campaigns to our elected officials at JFCS East Bay, thanks to the action arm of advocacy, the advocacy committee that we have as part of our board, who are very active in the community, talking to supervisors, district officials, county board of public health people, just getting like occupational therapists and folks. But we're also having a lot of calling campaigns with our elected officials at the state and federal level. So if you've ever like to volunteer and just to send a note and call on our behalf, we even have the talking points. You can reach out to us as well.
Great. Yes, I encourage you all to tap in. So yeah, we want to throw it out to some questions if people have any questions.
Did what we say resonate with folks? I mean,
yes.
Okay.
And just to highlight, I don't know the exact statistic, but the normal, like, allowed refugee, what became normal was like, I mean, it's crazy because, we all know that like Germany, I think they admitted like a million Syrians, and at the time the US had a limit of like, it was like 80,000 or 70,000.
The US is like less than 0.1% of the world's refugees are like in the
Trump
United States.
shrunk it down to like 10,000 or something. Like it's like insane. So while I was doing this work where you're meeting these people who are like, not only just like inspiring, but just like interesting, and I'm vibing with them and funny, and like to be like, what? Like it kept dropping. So that's something we need to get back up. I mean, it's not just about, I mean, obviously that we have a moral obligation to do that, but it also makes our country better. Like I would go to all these towns, Buffalo, Akron, Lancaster, like these are towns that are struggling economically, and you have folks come in and they're about it, and they're starting businesses, and they're becoming cool towns.
Until the Whole Foods moves in. I think there was a question in the middle.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dan, I think you're absolutely incredible. I've never seen any of your shows,
Oh,
but
thanks.
when she mentioned that she's seen all your shows since college, I hope you bring more shows back so we who don't know you can see what all is in your repertoire, because you're incredible.
Oh, thank you.
And I was wondering how you even thought to do a show on this topic.
Well, my son turned 1 when Trump was elected. That was his birthday. Yeah, it was a funky birthday, and so it was kind of like my response to that a little bit, like what, you know, trying, and also I just been meeting so many people who, like Arash talked about, are so multitudinous, and just feeling so so I went to the northern border first, and I was reading about these refugee safe houses, and I met some folks there, and then I started going to these towns, and I went to the southern border last, because that's sort of what we hear about all the time. And then I've been living in the South Bronx, and I've been hanging out a lot at the Courtyard as one of these big housing projects, and it struck me as kind of a border that most people in America don't cross. And so I sort of wanted to open it up to what are all the unseen borders, and sort of challenge us all to move through with more curiosity and less fear.